All right, hello everyone. Greg Mescall here with you for USA Water Polo, at home with USA Water Polo. This is a week celebrating water polo, and especially today we're talking about the family impact of water polo. That's why we have this for our older viewers, this Hollywood Squares look set up right now of people from around the water polo community, families that have been involved in water polo for a long time from different parts of the country. We've got California, West Coast, Midwest, East Coast, and the Southeast represented here with three different families joining us. We're going to talk to them about kind of their water polo life, their water polo adventure, why they got in it, why they feel like water polo is such a family affair, if you will, and why the water polo community is so close knit. And so to start things off, I was joking with them. This is like Family Feud, where we have like a spokesperson for the family introduce everyone. We're going to start with the Wright family of California, and Doug Wright here to explain to us how his family got involved and what they've done in the world of water polo. And Doug, as you're about to talk, just unmute yourself, and then you can tell us about you and your family.
Well, first off, Greg, it's great to be here and be with US Water Polo. To my left, your right, is Luke Wright, and he's 11 years old, turning 12 in about half a year. And he's a water polo player, doing a great job. And then to my right, your left, is my daughter, Malaya, who's 15, who been playing water polo forever. And you might remember her because I think you might have announced her 2014 JO gold medal game. And she played in that game and scored a goal. I'm going to let Jamie talk about how he got started in water polo, my older brother by 13 years, when you get a chance to interview him. But Jamie got me started in water polo, oh my Lord, a long time ago. I was in 7th grade. And it was, I was just turned 13, spring of 7th grade. I grew up in Menlo Park, and he took me over. I was terrified. He took me over to a 15 and under practice at Stanford Water Polo Foundation back in 1982. And I was, as I said, terrified. So I jumped in the water with a bunch of 15-year-olds and survived. Went on to play high school water polo. Went on to play at Foothill College, go Owls. And then went on to UC Davis, representing, go Ags. And he got me coaching water polo when I was in college, helping coach the women's team. And it has been, we started the high school team in 95. I took over as head coach in 96, and I've coached, I'm going into hopefully, fingers crossed, right? Hopefully 25th season as the girls high school water polo coach at Davis Senior High School. Go Blue Devils. You mess with the devil, you get the horns. Again, Luke and Malaya have been playing for a number of years. Malaya since about 2013, so about 6 or 7 years. And then Luke has been playing, he's 11, been playing like the last 3 or 4 years. That's kind of it in a nutshell for us.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And now that you're saying it, I'm remembering the name Malaya Wright. It's coming back to me. It sounded like that was, as I think back on it, a heck of a Junior Olympics.
Yes.
We will keep it rolling now. We'll go to the Midwest, and I'll ask Jeff Wimer to unmute himself here. And Jeff, tell us about your family. You have some folks here on the call with us, and your water polo life.
Well, Greg, first of all, thank you again also for inviting all of us, and welcome to all the families here from all parts of the country. My water polo career started in the mid-1960s with the Chicago Park District. I've been involved in it for a good majority of my life, over 50 plus years. I played age group, high school, played in college, got married early, started a family early, and in 1989, then that's when we formed our club program. I ran into an old friend of mine who was involved in coaching and officiating college, and that's how we started he was trying to get a club program going at Mundelein High School, this is about 25 miles north of Chicago. And I said to him I would help on my off days I was a firefighter for 31 years. But anyway, that's where we started a club program back then. And I helped with the high school teams then too, just to get it going. And it was actually my son, Sean, who's on the film or screen here. he was 6 years old when it all started, and then Keely just used to tag along, and I'd always have to kind of tie her to the bench because I didn't want her to fall into the pool then. One thing led to the next. I've currently now been at Stevenson High School. We had formed the Northern Illinois Polo Club, which goes by NIPC. And now my kids are giving back, helping out, coaching various levels. I just pretty much just coach high school girls program now for 20 plus 30 years. And my son coaches the high school boys team. My daughter helps oversee with the club program.
Excellent. Thanks for all that, Jeff. Again, and this will be a theme, I think, as everyone explains their story, that it started with a parent. They passed that love on down to their kids, and they've stayed in the game ever since. Last but not least, we turn to Michael Goldenberg in Florida. And Michael, tell us about, you've been involved in the game both as a coach and a referee, and obviously as a high level official today. Tell us about your journey to water polo and how your family got involved.
Well, I'm originally from Soviet Union, and I started playing when I was 10 years old. We lived just outside of Moscow, and for me to travel to that pool where we practiced, it was a 2-hour journey each way. So it was about 45, 50 minutes on a train, then about 25, 30 minutes on a subway, and then tramway, and then on the way back. So that's how it started. I was doing my homework on the train. I was traveling with parents at first and then by myself. So to make story short, after I graduated from high school, in 1979, I started my studies at Moscow Academy of Physical Education and Sports, graduated in 83 with a diploma of water polo and swimming coach. I started coaching and officiated back in Soviet Union, but at October 28, 91, my wife, myself, and our almost 2 years old daughter, who should be joining us on this meeting right now, we immigrated from Soviet Union and arrived to the United States. So here we are with a few pieces of luggage, $100 in the pocket, and a few months later, actually a month later, I met Bruce Weigel, who used to be CEO of USA Water Polo. His office was in Fort Lauderdale. That's where we are. And he helped me to meet some people. So a few months later, I started officiating in Broward County in high schools. February 93, I started my own club at Cold Springs, Florida, and I ran it for about 9 years. But I was a full-time teacher at school at that time. I was coaching swimming, water polo, and the club, and it was just not enough time in a day. So I had to stop coaching my own club. But in 2005, I joined South Florida Water Polo Club, which was organized by 3 enthusiasts of Bruce Weigel, Jim Shoemaker, and Istvan Shendesh. And I've been coaching that club since. I'm a head coach. I'm administrator of that club. Both of our children, Elena and Eric, played for this club. Elena ended up going to University of Maryland to play varsity, graduated from school in 3 years, and now she is a nurse and PhD in nursing. Eric also played in club, also played in high school that I also coached in Thomas Aquinas in Fort Lauderdale, and just graduated from UCLA a year ago. So that's a short version.
That's excellent. Well, let's hear from some of the kids here on the call, because all the dads here have explained how they got involved and how much they loved. And Alina, I'll start with you. Your dad tells this great story of, it's like the classic parent story, right? I walked to school, 20 miles each way in the snow, right? Talking about his love for water polo. Was there any way you weren't playing water polo? How did you get involved as a kid?
So I actually started swimming when I was 6 years old, and I swam for Coral Springs Aquatic, Club, Coral Springs Swim Club. And where my dad had his club at the time, when I was a little older and I kind of graduated to the not the youngest swim group, the pool where my dad had practices is actually where we host our international tournament every year. So it's a complex that has 3 pools. So I would have swim practice in the far pool, and my dad had his water polo practices that started right after my swim practice in the middle diving well. And after I was about 8 years old was when I was kind of tossed into the water for water polo for the first time, before I knew how to egg beater. And my dad's older girls and high school girls had to take turns cherry picking to keep me above the water. After that, I was like, man, this is pretty cool. And it certainly beats chasing a black line. But in order for me to get to the water polo practice, my dad still made me do swim practice, as much as I hated it. So I would, have to do my homework early. I'd get to go to swim practice, and I was just counting down the minutes till I could get out of one pool and get into the next pool to continue with water polo. And, I participated in other sports as I was growing up. I played volleyball. I played basketball. I kind of wanted to play volleyball in high school, but I very definitively remember my dad telling me that I really probably couldn't do it because it was during swim season and I couldn't be out of shape for water polo. So that was the end of volleyball right there. But middle school was fun, and I don't know. I think that, some people get this like runner's high when they run for 25 miles. I'm not sure why. But I get that, happiness feeling really when I get to go to a water polo practice. There's nothing quite like it. You work really hard, your muscles are tired, you get to see your friends, you play a great team sport, you're not having your, face chasing a black line and counting how many laps and losing track if you did 200 or 300 or 500 or whatever next set you're on. And I don't know, it just kind of instills a love for the game that doesn't disappear. I wish I had more hours in my day, I know my dad just got home from coaching practice, and I just got home from my 12.5-hour shift. So I wish I was at practice instead, but sometimes it just doesn't work out that way.
Well, thanks for joining us after spending 12.5 hours working. I appreciate that, and sharing your love for water polo. And everything you said, I think most people would agree with. This is we find ourselves not trying to insult swimming, but a lot of people do find their way to water polo after they get tired of chasing that black line, as you talked about. Sean, I wanted to ask you next, when talking about the Wimer experience, as your dad was explaining, bringing you and your sister to the pool, do you immediately embrace this idea, like, we're the Wimers and we're a water polo family? Or are you like, I'm doing this thing that dad wants me to do? What's your memories of getting involved?
So funny story, like he likes to tell it like he gets us involved. Realistically, when I was 6, I was in first grade, one of my buddies asked me to join the swim team and just come try out practice for the day. So I went, and then my dad was sitting in the stands, and that's when his buddy recognized him, was up in the stands. Prior to that, I had no knowledge my dad was an aquatics athlete. And he was All-American at Fenwick High School back in the 70s, and then played at UIC in the late 70s, right before they cut their program. I had no idea. So like, I kind of learned it as I grew my enjoyment of the sport. Never felt pressure, never was pushed to do it. In fact, I was more of a baseball player, 14 and under. And for us, it happens to be the same season because our water polo season's in the spring. And I chose water polo, and there was no pressure or whatnot. And it was kind of surprising, but things kept growing and growing, and as did my love of the sport. And then I just kept getting more and more into it. And then, I still love it. now I coach. Our high school team actually has a Zoom workout going on right now.
Well, thanks for skipping that out to join us.
Yeah, plenty of coaches.
Yeah. I'm sure everyone is probably a bit tired of the Zoom workouts at this point too. We've all been doing them for a long time. I'll go back to the Wright family here in Malaya, and for those that don't live in Davis, if you look at, you're a part of the Wright family and you live in Davis, of course you're playing water polo. But Malaya, what do you remember about kind of your introduction to this family sport?
It kind of all started when I was like 6 or like 5. I was just kind of like on the pool deck with my dad a bunch because he was all coaching, helping with his brother with the college team and just like kind of just like roaming around the pool. He would always like bike around with me in the little burly that was attached to his bike. We would always ride to Shaw, it's the pool. And then he just kind of introduced me to water polo, kind of got me into this Rugrats thing. It's kind of like a 8 and under little cutesy little water polo thing. And then I basically just kind of fell in love with the sport. I continued to do it. And now I play for my high school team, and I just really love the team and all my friends there. Yeah.
Everyone, and that's a great answer as you're kind of explaining your way into it. I think you would agree. I think everyone on this call would agree. So often when we talk to athletes, they always describe their team and the sport as a family. We're obviously talking to real families here, but Eric, I'll swing it down to you here back in your area. You've played at a high level. You played college. You played club. How do you describe the family feel of water polo? You obviously have your real family is in water polo, but just all the teams you've been on. How do you kind of describe that family nature of the sport?
Yeah. So when it really comes down to it, the people that you play with, the people that I've played with, whether it was our club or whether it was a national team, put together team, or some masters team going to Columbia, it always is the sense of family, and it's not necessarily that same family or friend that you get outside of the pool, and it's just because of, I guess it's the work that you put in, and you're always side by side with these people, and every day that you continue to put that work in, it kind of brings you closer in a sense. So I think that's kind of how the whole family thing really gets built through water polo.
And Keely, let me just turn your mic on here as well. You spend this much time at the pool with people, you probably need to get along with them if you're going to be this involved in a sport and be hanging around. How do you kind of describe as you're growing up when you realize, like, this is more than just a sport to me? I actually really like being around all the people involved in this thing.
You know, actually, that's really always been one of the biggest appeals to me with water polo, is that overwhelming sense that we can be greater together, greater than the sum of our parts. And I think, you know, it ties into that sense of community, and just running into families at the grocery store, even if you haven't seen them in years, you know, and knowing them through polo, and just picking up right where you left off, or being able to do fundraisers for somebody I played college with who lost a family member tragically. It's, you know, I think there's just this really, it's family, but it's really that deeper community sense, and just feeling connected to something better than what each of us can do alone. You know, and I think that's what's so special about water polo, especially because you don't get that feeling as intensely with some of the more popular sports. It really still is somewhat of a small, close-knit community, you know, even nationwide. So.
That's excellent. And it is, you know, it is interesting, right? It is a national sport. We're talking to people from all corners of the country here, but everyone has a feeling that they're part of the same community, whether they turn up at the same tournament or somewhere else. Luke, Wright, you're the only one we haven't heard from yet, so we got to get you in the mix here. When did you have a sense, between your dad, between your Uncle Jamie, when did you have a sense that, wow, my family is really into water polo? They really like this water polo thing.
It's kind of when I saw my dad helping, just like my sister, my dad's helping Uncle Jamie with like coaching, and I'm also like running around picking up the ball that goes out of the pool and stuff. And I kind of wanted to get in the pool sometimes, and that's kind of how I started. And then I started doing Rugrats like Malaya, went up to 10U, started making a lot of friends in 10U, went up to 12, where I am right now, and that's basically how it's been for a while. There's not really a pressure of me going. It's more of me seeing, like, hey, I want to see my friends, so I'm gonna go. And I've noticed it's been more fun with friends than it's been by yourself, because sometimes you jump in the pool and I'm with my sister, and then, like, I feel like it's more fun with someone else. Not to be mean to my sister, but it's more fun with friends than family, because my friends are kind of like family to me. So.
Way to turn that around at the end there. That's nicely done there. That was we were heading one way and you brought it back. Well done, Luke. Doug, I'll stick with you there for a minute.
Yeah, sure.
You know what water polo gave you as a player. What has it given you as a parent? What has it been like to watch your kids get immersed in this thing that you love so much?
Wow. That's a powerful question. Growing up being a player, you're so about, your immediate experience, how you interact with the team, even just playing the game, being in the game, and then being a coach. It's kind of stepping back like 5,000 feet or 10,000 feet. But then being a parent, you kind of come back in on it. And, having to coach a team that your daughter or your son is playing on, poses some real big challenges, just in regards to perception and things like that. And it's been an awesome experience. I love my favorite times traveling in the car to tournaments or to practice with my kids and talking about stuff and making sure, I learned early on, leave the coaching at the pool and try not to coach too much on the way home. So sometimes we'll talk about stuff just for a couple minutes and then we kind of turn water polo off a little bit and just get back to family stuff. But it's been extremely powerful to share a sport that my brother shared with me a long time ago and be able to share it with my kids.
When you said don't coach on the way home, every other child on this call gave a knowing. Yep, do not do that.
Yes.
Jeff, similar question to you. Your kids are a bit older than Doug's. As you think back on the experience for the Wimer family, what has it meant for you as a dad to see your kids involved in a sport that you like? I was going to unmute you there, Jeff. There we go.
This truly it's been a lifelong passion. And to be able to share that with your kids, it's unbelievable. It really is. I mean, we've been involved with this for over 30 years as a family. It's so rewarding. And truly one of the most difficult things 20 plus years ago when they were little, though, was coaching them at times because I would never show favoritism. And they know this. But as they've grown older, they understand it totally. Yeah, those ride homes were pretty hard sometimes. And then even sometimes we never wanted to carry it over at home because the real boss at home would lay down the law. But because she never wanted to hear about it, as loving as she is. But the best experiences we ever had was traveling all over the country as a family and being involved. Whether it be tournaments in the East Coast, down in Florida, out in California all the time. When they were really little, sometimes we even went up to Canada. We've just had some phenomenal family time, and it truly has been a passion, and it's great to share.
And Michael, I'll ask you for your similar thoughts here on being able to hear something with your kids that you loved as a kid and what that's meant to you and your family.
Well, I agree with previous speakers that it's the hardest part to coach young children. Definitely don't want to show any favoritism, and it's hard. And when they're little, they might get upset. Eric was getting upset quite a few times. But as grown, he understood. But the best part out of all of it that our family is pretty much grew up in water polo. And like I say, it's a family joke, but my wife didn't marry me. She married water polo. Because both kids ended up playing sport. I am traveling quite a bit domestically and internationally, so she knows how it works. Meeting other people you know, when I'm coaching or meeting other parents that I coach, and seeing my kids growing up with their kids, and their friends for life now, this is incredible. This is probably the most rewarding part of being a coach. But being a parent coach, I agree, that's tough. That's tough.
I think all the kids can agree that there was no favoritism, and everything was much harder for us every single day we went to practice.
Yes.
Somehow everything was on our shoulders.
I think I got thrown out of more practices than everybody else combined.
That's a fact.
This is turning into a group therapy session, so everyone just kind of feel free to load your worst memories. No, I'm kidding. Eric, just to kind of build off of what your dad was talking about a bit, but not everyone gets to be involved in their parents' job, right? And even if you have a day job and then you volunteer as a club coach, that sort of thing. What was it like to be able to be involved in the thing that your dad was passionate about too, and you could kind of share that together?
I mean, it was really amazing, honestly. Like for me, the way that I got thrown into water polo, and I literally did get thrown in. That's why I say that. I was 7 years old, and we were at a pool called Westminster Pool. That's where South Florida Water Polo had started back in the day in 2003. And so when I was about 7, my dad, I faintly remember, but he's obviously told me before, but he just threw me in the water, and I think that's where the career essentially started. And that's also where the cherry picking started for probably the next 3 good years. That's kind of how I was introduced into it. And for me, I was obviously young at that age, but as I started to get to 10, 11, 12, 13, and then now it's 14 and unders, I really had a chance to understand how much the sport meant to my family in particular, and just their whole process of coming over here, and how much family my dad has made through water polo, and all the refs, coaches, and everyone that's just tied into the sport. So it really gave me a good idea early on of how kind of important water polo was, not just for being able to go to practice and get that runner's high, but in water polo, but really to just understand that water polo is a sport with a small community that really does connect a lot of people, families. So it was great. It was great for me to just be a part of it.
Ely, similar question for your family, but now as you've gotten older and you think back on those years of kind of coming up in the sport and your dad coaching, does it give you a different perspective now as you've learned of other kids' journeys and that they didn't get to kind of be part of a family activity the way that you and your brother and your dad were?
I think as a coach, I get the honor of working with kids from all kinds of walks of life, but it was something we actually kind of experienced firsthand. Sean and I both had some very close friends who would kind of come on these family vacations that they turned out to be as part of water polo trips, because their families wanted so badly for them to be able to go, but they just didn't have the means to really do that and whatnot. And our parents were like parents to a lot of these other kids. And so I think I was pretty lucky at a young age to understand that not everybody is this fortunate. And, in hindsight, I think because we didn't get away with things, all of us kids, when our parents were coaches, I think that probably instilled a really tough and hard working, this dedicated work ethic in us. That, we don't just expect things to be handed to us. We really have to earn them or face being accused of like favoritism or nepotism. Right. So I think as an adult now, those are lessons I'm very grateful for, certainly. And I'm always trying to adjust my coaching style because, life is a learning process. So I'm continuously exposed to new things that I'm trying to improve on.
Excellent. Let's go back to the Wright family and Malaya. I'll ask you similar to what I've asked some of the other kids here, but looking at it from your point of view, right? So your dad was explaining what it's meant to him to be able to share his favorite sport with you. What's the reverse like? What's it been like to be able to take part in something that he's so passionate about?
Well, usually when I'm like in the pool, just kind of like swimming around, like when we're scrimmaging and stuff, he would always go like hard on me. Like I would always have to earn everything, like earn every foul, earn every kick out. He would never like blow the whistle for me, so I would always have to work extra hard, harder than everybody else. I would like never get anything easy like some of the other kids did. Yeah, no favoritism there. And also for my brother, he would never get any calls like that.
It's just it's more of my poor officiating is probably.
Kind of.
You're like so easy. Like I'm here and you're like foul.
And then I always like look up at him sometimes and be like, why didn't I get that call? Or like I'm like yelling at him like, why didn't I get that ejection or something? And he'd be like, well, you have to earn everything. And I'm like, I know.
So what we've learned today is two things. Water polo is a family sport. And if you play for your parent, you will get no benefit of the doubt. It may actually be more difficult to earn exclusions, playing time, the starting role. Sean, I'll go back to you. And I'm curious, as you have played the sport and coached the sport, when you're explaining it to people who aren't familiar with it, maybe it's a school athlete who's like thinking about joining the team or the club, or someone that you were playing with that was younger that you were trying to recruit onto the team. How do you explain why it's a welcoming thing to be a part of?
So it's kind of funny because I've been coaching now 14 years. I started right out of college. And when I first started coaching, I handed the kids a playbook probably 20 pages long. And I'm talking like JV players, high school like varsity players. Didn't matter because I'm fresh out of LMU, just played in 3 NCAA Final Fours. I'm like, I'm ready to go. And the kids just look at you like, what are you talking about? So over the years, and then my wife also started coaching with me, and she just literally ripped it in half and threw it in the garbage and goes, start with the basics and then build upon everything. Lay your foundation, build upon everything. And as years gone on, I don't care where we're at as the team. Like this past year, granted we lost our season, we would have had probably our best team in school history. But that was like such a high level for me to coach at, because the rest of the guys are down here, but I have 12 guys that were at this level. No matter what, I was still going to start down here. Because even for those top tier guys, instituting or refreshing that sorry, I'm blanking. Just laying that foundation and reworking and going over everything, it's only going to reinstill it in them. So basically just building upon our foundation and just never like overlooking the simplest, finest, most basic details. I'll coach a high school kid who's on the national youth team the same as I'm going to teach an incoming freshman. Obviously, I'll gear it differently towards their personality, but the structure of what we're doing is the same. It's just the level of detail they're given can be that much more at a higher level. So like these Zooms we're doing right now, and sorry, I'm rambling, but these Zooms we're doing right now, I geared everything towards a JV level. And if they have questions beyond that, they can ask them. But we designed PowerPoints to just outline the basic, like, here's your counterattack. This is our objective. This is the goal. This is how we do it. Hopefully it looks like that. But until you do it in the water, who knows? So just fundamentals, basics, foundation.
I love that you kind of talked about your passion for the sport and, going to college, playing at a high level, right? And then trying to take that and essentially like inject it into your team, right? Like I'm so hyped to play this. Like I did it big time. I want them to do it big time. We have a couple of athletes here that played college at a high level. Alina, we have to pour one out for the Maryland program. It's a bummer that doesn't exist anymore. I would love for it to come back. It's a great aquatic facility. You know everything I'm talking about. But I want to come back to you and just talk about where your passion to reach that level came from. Is that a thing that came from your dad's love for water polo? Or is that just something that you kind of built over the years? You realized that you had an aptitude for this sport. Where did you get that determination to not only succeed at high school, but then go to that higher level?
So to be honest, I think that in order to be an athlete, really call yourself an athlete in whatever sport it is that you're participating in, you have to have some kind of internal competitive drive, right? Because other than that, what goal are you trying to achieve, right? In our sport, you want to score more goals than the other team, right? You don't go into a game wanting to lose. That's not a natural athletic inclination. So I think that, you know, as I played and as I was fortunate enough to be part of the zone team for many years. And over the course of 5 years, from like 13 to 18, I was part of the youth and junior national teams. And, you know, water polo is growing in Florida, right? But it's not like it is in California. And being able to have that exposure to go out for national team tryouts every year, the zone tournaments, and being able to compete at a higher level and seeing that there's always something else to learn, something to do better. Hey, like that girl grabbed my suit and I didn't even know you could grab suits like that, you know? And then taking it back and learning from it and, you know, getting better. And I think because I started so young and because I participated in other sports also, I just wanted to excel. I'm naturally like a type A personality, so I just like to do exceptionally well in anything that I'm doing. And you know, when it came time, when the national team portions were over and it came time to choose a college, I ended up choosing the University of Maryland, and I had a good experience there. And you're right, the aquatic facility is, you know, to die for. And I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the whole experience. You know, I actually graduated in 3 years, and I ended up finishing up early and then coming back home. And my brother actually redshirted his first year at UCLA, so he had a 5th year. And, you know, when he was talking about whether or not he was going to stay or come home, I definitely made sure to tell him that, you know, playing at the college level is not an experience that you're ever going to be able to get back. So really think about, you know, if you're ready to graduate at 4, or if you want to stay and make it work for a 5th. And things ended up working out for him to come home, and I'm glad he did. But it's just an experience that you really take with you for a lifetime. And the friends that I made, my whole career, the friends that I have made are lifelong friends. They're people that I've shared apartments with, you know, was the maid of honor in my wedding, who we play with each other's kids. And, you know, my brother's 7 years younger than me, but he's on the same route. You know, he's the best man in his friend's wedding, and they all get together. And essentially when they all get together, it's like, I go from one little brother to 10, you know, and inviting them over for dinner is just, I might as well go bankrupt. But the family and friends that you make throughout the sport and the competitive nature within it, just, you know, I feel like it drives you to succeed.
We had a call, one of these same Zoom chats maybe 2 weeks ago with a bunch of Masters water polo players from different age groups. And they all echoed exactly what you were talking about, Alina, where they come to Masters Nationals, they go to tournaments, they like playing water polo. It's still fun, but that is like 10% of the deal at this point. You know, if you're showing up for 50s plus Masters or 30s plus, whatever it might be, you're really there to see your friends. It's like a built-in excuse to get together with people you like. And by the way, we'll try and play 3 to 4 games and see how we do. And it's because of these bonds that are made through the sport of water polo. Keely, I wanted to ask you whether it was playing at a high level or coaching now, are there moments you've had where you kind of remember something you learned from your dad or your brother, something through your family connection where you're like, oh, this is what they were talking about all these years, and now it's me doing it to the people that I'm coaching or talking to?
I can't tell you how many times I like beg the kids not to make me sound like my parents. I am constantly just, you know, spewing phrases that I have heard year over year, and, you know, even things where, because my dad and my brother and I all participate now in coaching because we love coaching too. It's not just the water polo part, it's working with kids, and just getting to see them grow and develop into little young adults. And so, you know, we're always telling them things like it's more than just water polo. There's life lessons here, or, you know, and we call them out on things like behavior, not just water polo skills, and make sure that we're treating everybody with respect and being a good teammate and citizen too. So, you know, there's a lot of times where I find myself reflecting on the lessons that have been imparted upon me by not just my parents, but Sean as well, and his wife too. You know, we're really lucky to all get to kind of work together and live pretty close together, and that's not something a lot of people can say about their families. It's a fine line, you know. But I definitely value all of their insights and education and experience. We've all walked very different paths, but there's a lot of gems in there. And one of my favorites is probably, you know, offense wins games, defense wins championships. Rome wasn't built in a day. Those are two of the ones that tend to come out a lot with the kiddos these days. So I know my family can't really take credit for those, but certainly they're ones that we've said over the years.
Your dad gave like a knowing look, like, yep, I have said those things before. I know what she's talking about. Doug, if you look long term, you know, you're talking about your kids being involved in the sport now at that high school and younger level. What do you hope the sport gives them down the road? You know, you've heard from some other people here that are a little bit older, and it's the bonds, the friendships, best man, maids of honors, those sorts of things. What do you see in the future? What do you hope this sport brings to your kids?
I look back on my experience, you know, playing water polo at UC Davis and swimming there, and just the bonds, the friendships I made, and you know, really feeling like whether it was swimming or water polo, quite frankly, really being on a team where you felt like you had each other's back and having that kind of healthy and happy experience. And, you know, moving forward, I want the same thing for my kids. I want them to be healthy and happy. And, you know, obviously in the short run, I hope that we get this health epidemic handled so we can really get back to water polo as it should be. But I really hope down the line that, you know, out of high school gives them an opportunity. It sets a paradigm of what their relationship with the sport and their teammates can be. So when they go to college, they can have, you know, a really good experience playing. And quite frankly, I'm seeing it here with all the other guests. You know, obviously nothing would make me happier to see my kids play in college and have that experience. But someday if they were to coach, that would be, and yes, actually Malay is coaching our 10Us right now. So she's starting to get into it. And it does make me happy watching them start to get into that. But I think, you know, yeah, college and then hopefully coaching someday. Lots of fans on I'm just looking through our Facebook comments now. You all have a lot of fans that are watching. Ivan Munoz gives Alina a shout out. We also have Candace Walthaler loves the Wright family. No surprise there. We love Candace. Kylie Johnson says Jeff and Keely Wimer were the best coaches that they could have asked for. So a lot of love there. Susie Murphy also a lot of love for Coach Jeff Wimer. So people here are checking in on the comments. I appreciate you guys taking part here. Just a couple more to kind of wrap things up here. But Michael, I'll go back to you here on this. Just building off of what Alina was talking about, describing Eric's experience too. When you got the kids involved, you knew it would be an activity, something that you liked. What's it been like to watch them build out their kind of community, right? So not just the water polo stuff, but the friends they've made, bonds they've built, that sort of stuff. Did you ever imagine that would be part of it?
Not to that extent. I mean, it's obvious that whoever plays sport, they are friends with their teammates. They better be friends with their teammates. Otherwise, team is not that good. But to the extent that my kids or our kids have, it's just amazing. It's really amazing. And I feel really blessed because not only about coaching my own kids, but also I think, I don't know about other states, but in Florida, water polo doesn't pay very well for coaching. So, but it is very rewarding to see the kids that I used to, or athletes that I used to coach, coming back years later, and they're already mothers or fathers. It's just amazing. And it happens more often now because I've been coaching for quite a long time. So the kids that I used to coach that graduated from different kind of colleges and military academies, they're coming back now, and they see their kids that are about 10, 12 years old already, and they're asking me if their kids can join our club. So this is exactly what I call the circle of life, you know, when it just comes back and come back to you is the biggest reward that I think it is in coaching. And when Alina graduated from Maryland and she came back home, she was coaching for a while. She was coaching little kids, and she did a great job. She was coaching older girls, and she had great connection with them. She was also officiating. Eric hasn't coached. Eric is playing Masters, but he started officiating about a year ago when he came back from college. But the friends that they have, I know all of them, or whoever they played with in our club, or most of them, whoever they played at college, they're their friends for life. And if they're their friends, they're my kids too. So here's the family to you.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Jeff, I wanted to ask you similar, just looking at those Facebook comments, right? And someone writes in that, your son or your daughter is the best coach they ever had. That has to be something that makes you feel great, and maybe is not what you thought might happen when you were just getting them in the sport as a bunch of kids.
It's so rewarding. It really is. When I see the kids and the athletes that my own kids are coaching now, and how they look up to them and how it reflects upon them, makes me very proud. Like Michael just said, it's been like the circle of life, and it truly has been. It's just so rewarding seeing how they're giving back. There's so many of the athletes literally probably hundreds who have either been involved officiating or coaching. And like all the, Mike said this too, these kids, they've all been a part of our family. And that's been the whole big thing about all this. All the other coaches, everywhere else, and their athletes, hey, Coach Wimer, or, whatever, when they reach out to you. And it's so, the word, rewarding. It's so rewarding, and it's a passion of ours, all of ours.
That's fantastic. Hey, before we go, Doug, did you bring someone else to the party here?
Future star.
That's right. This is Landon James, right? And he was sporting his USA Water Polo shirt, so he was allowed to come out and say hi. He's turning 3 in 2 weeks, but he is turning into a pretty good swimmer. He's a very good floater right now, so we'll work on water polo a little bit later.
Perfect. That's an excellent start. Well, there's really no better way to end it than that when you talk about the circle of life and things coming full circle, and seeing those that have lived a life in water polo and those that are just getting started at 3 years old. So thanks everyone for joining us here, everyone that watched live on Facebook, and for all of you joining us from all around the country. Really appreciate you taking part in this and sharing a little bit of your water polo life.